All right. Well, because the game was on Saturday, we had an extra day to think about it. And yes, it did actually happen. The Colorado Avalanche were embarrassed by the Vegas Golden Knights 7-0. Obviously, a ton to talk about, even in that kind of defeat. Kyle and I are going to try to polish this turd. New episode of Locked On Avalanche coming right at you.
Your Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Locked On Avalanche podcast. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am your host, Chris Maselli. With me, as always, Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. Thank you for tuning in, making it your first listen of the day. That's always appreciated. Make sure to follow us, as always, on our social media outlets, LOPN_Avalanche on Twitter, X, Locked On Avalanche on Instagram. Questions, comments, concerns, and opinions, lockedonavalanche@gmail.com. And follow us over on YouTube. Hit subscribe, get notified when a new show goes live. Absolutely subscribe to our Subtext. Link to that is in the show notes below. When you do, you get to sound off and become one of our special insiders that chat with Kyle and I one-on-one. And we will read some of those comments later on in the episode. You see what we're going to be discussing. We will get to the November schedule because there's the way that the schedule has worked out. We haven't been able to discuss that. Still obviously early in November. So we'll take a look, and maybe it was good that we waited till now to do it after this 7-0 thumping and kind of look at, okay, can the Avalanche right this ship with the schedule that is presented to them for November? So we'll get to that in a little bit. Obviously, where we're going to start here, Kyle, is what happened over the weekend. And I mean, because we typically don't do shows over the weekend, everybody by now is fully aware of the horrific events that happened in Vegas. That was a rough loss, clearly. But the interesting thing is, like, we have not. I was half sick and away at the same time for the weekend. Where I was able to watch the game clearly. But we haven't been able to communicate that much. So we don't really know how the other is feeling or thinking right now. So let me hear what you have to say about this, and then I'll chime in with my thoughts. Go ahead.
What a garbage effort in that
Mhm.
in that Vegas loss.
Okay.
I understand there's going to be two schools of thought around this Avalanche team on yes, they were not the better team that night. I get that, granted. And everybody's going to point back at, oh, but they won against St. Louis. Step back a little bit farther. That's one in their last four.
Right.
Shutout in 3 of those games.
All on the road.
All on the road. After winning, get the NHL record for the consecutive road wins. La-dee-da.
Well, and I don't want to cut you off, but the road thing, to me, because it's like carried over, that was 10 games from the past season.
Exactly.
So they were putting a little bit too much emphasis on it. Happened and they have the record, and congratulations. But it wasn't like it was 3 games from last season and 12 from this year. You know what I mean? But
yeah,
go ahead.
And honestly, if you take a farther, let's step all the way back. Let's look at the year so far. The Avalanche, they've either steamrolled or they've been steamrolled. And the Avalanche, clearly in that Vegas game, there is no cohesion. It is a bunch of individuals trying to score goals. And the Vegas game, yes, the score was gaudy, but the stats were not that bad. Like, there wasn't that much of a difference in the two teams. The only difference is one team's coming off a Stanley Cup and one team's putting a team together, and that was clear from the puck drop.
So, for me, like, it was, I mean, you mentioned like the would you say it was like a garbage effort? I think what you said. To this game, like, I don't feel like the effort is lacking. Sure, when you're down like 6-0, you're not going to be going as hard as you are. But for half of that game, the Avalanche were playing better than Vegas was. They were playing better. And at the halfway point, I believe it was only 2-0. And the concerning part is the game ended for the second half of that game, and it was 7-0 to finish that game. So everydayers know, like I enjoy, deep stats, analytics. I like stuff like that. I don't live by them. I look at them because they can tell a story. And for this game specifically, they don't tell the story, because this is one of those games where, like, you can throw all that stuff out. It's one team is at a different level right now, and things are clicking for them, that team being Vegas, and the complete opposite. And the Avalanche are going through what most teams go through in the early going. And for the fan base, they don't want to see that. You know what I mean? Like, you can have, like, you can have a team that is learn, and you have a team that is new, learning the system. You're learning it on the fly. You need the month of October to kind of really figure out how things. And because they started off 6-0, we were saying, is that team are they gonna need that time to gel? Clearly they do. Clearly they do. Vegas doesn't need to, because they had a short off season, and for a lot of teams, they don't like that. But for Vegas, it's like they didn't stop playing. They've continued to play. And as I said, going back to just the real quickly, like the analytic thing, you can look at those. The Avalanche are you could look at those analytics and not the score and think that was a very close game, and you would think that the Avalanche probably won that game, because with expected goals, they beat them in expected goals. The Corsi, which I just like to bring up, Corsi 4 for Vegas, 53 against 87. They had 35 more shots towards the net, did the Avalanche, than Vegas did. So I think the effort, while this, even though, as a score ballooned, the effort's not gonna be there towards the end of the game. But overall, like, I thought the Avalanche had very good chances, and that is kind of like the main difference right now, is one team is connecting and completing those chances, while the Avalanche are struggling mightily to just put a puck in the net. At some point, you just have to have the willpower to will these goals in, and they are just not there for the Avalanche right now. And I have complete faith that they will eventually, but right now it's not happening.
And for the everydayers, how Chris loves his stats. You can call me Vibey Von Doom. I'm very much the eyeball guy, like the
Sure,
vibe.
yeah.
Like I live off what this team's body language is doing. And you heard it in Nathan McKinnon's post-game remarks. He let the team down. There's nobody, and again, this is where we all take our hats off and say, boy, we miss Gabe Landeskog. There is no leadership. There is no person you turn to and say, who's turning this around? Because the entire game, you talked about, and like the stats, we're going to talk about them. They're pretty right down the middle, except for the score.
Right.
And there's not one moment where that team, a line on this team said, okay, we're pushing back. We're taking this back. There wasn't that
man.
final. It doesn't feel like there's a line there. It doesn't feel like, and this is half and half, because the lines are constantly jumbled. Like
Right.
Tatar and Drouin weren't like, they're not becoming a part of the team. Like, they're fluctuating, where in the beginning we were talking about, wow, Miles Wood, Tatar, and Colton, what a line. Now look at what that line looks like.
Yeah.
And then Mikko Rantanen and Nathan McKinnon are semi-gelling, but nowhere near Mikko's incredible point streak to start the season, and Nathan McKinnon as well. Like, that's also tapered off. Those games at the beginning where we started out 6-0 were won off individual performances, and it's lacking now. And nobody's taking that next step up to finish those, and it's concerning, and you're wanting to see some kind of synergy, but it's hard when it's constantly in flux. And guys like Tufte aren't on the team, but Drouin and Tatar are being scratched.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the Avs were battling, like I said, early in the game, and that third line looked great. And I even for the keys to the game, if you follow us over on X, one of them was net front and presence, because Vegas gives up tons of rebounds. They were.
Mhm.
They were like there was one possession from when the third line was out there where the Avs had the puck in the zone. They were cycling, they were moving the puck around. Vegas was looking tired. Aiden Hill was giving up. He gave up like 3 or 4 rebounds in one possession, and the Avs just couldn't get that greasy goal. That's where they're at right now. And I don't want people to feel like that, there's so, I mean, it's the end of the world as you know it over on social media, but I genuinely boil this down to it's been a collection of games, right? You said like the 3 out of the 4, the ones on the road, they're not scoring. Yes, you can look at that as a whole and have concern over that. But you have to take into context where things are right now. Like we're in the beginning of November. You see what Vegas is doing. That's an anomaly. That like they're on another level right now, and you just hope they can slow down at some point. They're what Boston was last year. But if you focus on the Avalanche, like they're just not connecting on chances. It'll come around. And if the Avs if they were not, would they have, how many shots on goal did they have? I don't have NHL. But I mean, they had almost 40 shots on goal. It's so weird to say this, that there's a lot of good that you can take out of in terms of chances. But when you have a 7-0 score, it's almost like none of that matters. To your point, like it's like who's the one stepping up here, and you would think it'd be Nathan McKinnon. You would think it'd be Cale Makar. He had that little twist in his knee or something early on, and nobody really wanted to be like the man. I'm not buying this whole Gabe Landeskog. If Gabe Landeskog would have been there, it wouldn't have mattered. That game wouldn't have mattered. Okay, we're at 7-1. Gabe Landeskog is not walking through that door, even if this was his first game back, and miraculously now all of a sudden this team is playing better. I don't like that narrative, and it's very popular right now. Whenever anything's going wrong with the Avalanche, it's because Gabe Landeskog hasn't been here for 2 years. There is some percentage of that's truth. It's not as high as everybody wants it to be. It's not. This team does this every single year. They take time. The team that won the Stanley Cup, what were they, 4-5-2 in their first 11 games? And where we are now at 7-3-0, people are hitting the panic button more now than they were at 4-5-2 when they won the Cup. I get it. It's a frustrating loss. You're going through a little bit of a frustrating stretch. This team is too good to continue this. You have 72 games to go. It's a horrible game, and I am in no way making excuses for it. But let's just all relax a little bit here, a little bit.
Yeah, I have a point that I'd like to bring to you in just a minute.
Okay. We'll get to our first break here, and then clearly, if you didn't know, we have a lot of thoughts on this, and there's more. There's a lot more to talk about.
This is what happens when you sleep on it.
Yeah, exactly. So we're gonna hear Kyle's thoughts on the other end of this break, which begins with game time. And I mean, is there a better place to go for buying tickets, Kyle? I don't know if you can find one.
It is now my number one app. We're looking. It's for anything. Anytime I need a ticket, I love Game Time.
Absolutely. You shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event, because Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you, with killer last-minute deals, all-in pricing, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets, and they have deals right up to the start of the event, even an hour after it starts, believe it or not. If the place it's the place to find last minute seats with zone deals. You pick the section and Game Time picks the seats for an average of 18% savings. Can't beat that. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. So again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNHL. That's LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Also brought to you by Parkview Advance. And as a business owner, you realize there are times when receivables might fall behind, but that doesn't mean that you need to fall behind on vendor payments, payroll, or rent. And for more than 25 years now, Parkview Advance has helped people and businesses secure working capital from $5,000 to $1.5 million, Kyle. Parkview Advance can approve your working capital in as little as 24 hours. It's a much easier process than you might imagine. And we invite the many entrepreneurs that are Locked On NHL and Locked On Avalanche fans to learn more by calling at 203-675-0071 or go to parkviewadvance.com. If your business needs working capital, call Parkview Advance today. Parkview Advance, helping businesses with their working capital. Once again, go to parkviewadvance.com. All right, more to get to on this Avalanche 7-0 loss to Vegas over the weekend. And a little bit from now, we will get to that November schedule. But what else you got for this one? Obviously more to talk about.
Yeah, you were talking about the two teams and how even they were. And this Cup team, they were like 4-5-2 to start the season last year. My question is to you, good buddy. Where's the Stanley Cup hangover for Vegas? And why is Colorado off to now? What is the redeeming quality you saw in that 7-0? Because I'm tired of shining turds in shootout in a shutout. Like,
okay. Yeah,
we have Nathan McKinnon, who for a brief period of time was the highest paid player in the NHL.
Well, he is right now.
Yeah,
that'll
get eclipsed. And
right.
That's going to be a footnote in the annals of history.
Right.
But you have Mikko Rantanen, who has had this resurgence when it comes to like the talking heads on, hey, don't be sleeping on this Mikko Rantanen guy. And then you have Cale Makar, generational talent. And then you have LOC. He had that short little shorthanded streak. And you have all this incredible talent. Why on earth are you putting up why are you getting shut out in 3 of your last 4 games?
Yeah.
With this firepower. It's unacceptable with this Avalanche roster. We talk about, like you mentioned, like with the talent on this roster, good things are coming. Why can you not tally a single goal when you know, like those rebounds, like you talked about in our keys to the game? You know that's there. You know this Vegas team. There's not a lot of change from last year. You know what this Vegas team looks like. The Avalanche are the new. Their roster construction is different. And with this team, there's not, like we mentioned, Newhook all the time. There's not a lot of Newhook evaluation other than Drouin. He is the equivalent. He's that lateral piece there. But with Ryan Johansson, Miles Wood, Ross Colton, you know what you're getting. You know what you're getting out of Arturi Lehkonen. Where is the synergy to finish the tic-tac-toe goals, the power plays?
Yeah.
What is going on? That's where the panic button's being pressed, because when you're looking at this roster top to bottom, it's 3 out of 4. It's a trend.
No, for now it is, but in sports, especially with baseball, basketball, and hockey, things start to even out. The cream usually rises to the top when it comes to regular seasons. Playoffs are the playoffs. Anything can happen in the playoffs. For the regular season, like you just listed all of those guys and all of these stars that the Avalanche have and all these guys that they brought in. They're too good for this to continue over the course of a season. It just can't. It's not going to happen. I'm completely convinced it's not going to happen. Number one, for everything that you just said. And yeah, I like stats and I like looking at analytics, because those usually, when you expand those out, like for this game, they meant nothing. They meant absolutely nothing. But when you expand, like you will not get the stats that and the analytics that came out of this game. If those happen every single game throughout the rest of the season, the Avalanche are just fine. So when you just look, you take like the bird's eye view and you kind of expand everything out over the course of a full season. When you have Corsi 4 of 89, when your expected goals for the game, what was it for the Avalanche? I have it right here. You had more expected goals for them, or for the Avalanche. It was 3.72 to 2.5. It was 2.5 expected goals for Vegas. So Georgiev just has to stop goals. And that's easier said than done, but you just have you have the thought process that he'll come around and start doing that, just like we saw him do at the beginning of the season. Now he's going through that rut, so he'll come out of that. Things will iron themselves out right here, but that's over the course of the duration of the season. You know what I mean? But for here and now, like the immediate is this game. None of that meant anything because there's a Vegas team where everything is just clicking. And I'm sorry that 7th goal, a blind pass that just went right in front of Georgiev, went through 3 or 4 players scot-free. Nobody touched it. And there's a Vegas player on the complete other end of the goal who probably didn't even expect to have that puck, ends up right on his tape and ends up in the goal. And that was where I was just like, this is where 2 teams are right now. One team, everything is working out for them. The other team, they're having to work for absolutely everything and having nothing to show for it. Those things will even themselves out over the course of a season. But for the last 48 hours means nothing to Avalanche fans. And I completely understand that.
And I think it stings a little bit because you look in the conference and you see a team that has said the exact same thing when it comes to talent on the roster in Edmonton, who has said, don't worry, we're going to be fine. We have the best player in hockey. Things will iron itself out.
Yeah.
And then he suffers an injury and then everything's bad. It's that same thing. You can't constantly hope for Nathan MacKinnon to save the day because that cup-winning Avalanche team, like we keep talking about Darren Helm and Josh Manson and like moments from them, it takes a whole team effort. It takes the guys you don't talk about, and you're not seeing a lot of that right now.
Well, and here's the difference between why the Avalanche I can say that about the Avalanche, and Edmonton's in a whole nother world right now. Edmonton's 2-7-1 right now. So remember, even with last year when the Avalanche had all those injuries, and we would always say like they're staying afloat, they're keeping their head above water, and they're in the mix for everything. And we all know how last year ended in terms of the regular season. They won the division. They're still doing that. They're having these problems, and they're 7-3-0. They are 1 point behind Dallas right now. They both have the same games played. So yeah, like you're having these issues, but you're still at the top of the division. Edmonton is having those issues, and they are on the bottom of the division. So now they have all of that stuff that they have to make up when, I mean, McDavid's back already, but you know, that's a whole nother world because of where they are in the standings. Where the Avalanche are in the standings, we're having all these issues with them, and they're a point out of first. That's a massive difference to me. So the Avalanche, they continue to do this. They continue to have problems, but stay afloat and even at the top of the division while they have these problems, and they're figuring it out. And then when they do figure it out, away they go.
But my friend, how long can they have these issues with this November schedule coming up?
Yeah, I know they have to turn it around. There's no doubt about it. And you get, I give teams October. October is the start of the season. Figure stuff out and
post preseason.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Like you can't. It's the beginning of a new year. It's not. Yeah. You're not gonna have a Boston Bruins of last year. That doesn't happen. Maybe, and we'll see if it happens for Vegas. But they're gonna hit bumps in the road too. So we will. Let's get into that November schedule and see if this is where the Avalanche can right the ship. Maybe just having more games in the month of November, just to be the creatures of habit that we all are. You know, maybe that's something that the Avalanche will look forward to, just to have more games played and more home games too.
Yeah. So
let's talk about that here in a second. We're going to bring up FanDuel. It's our favorite sports book in America. It's number one. It's the number one sports book in America, and you can score early this NFL season with FanDuel, because right now new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. And because, like I said, I was doing some traveling this weekend, I didn't watch a ton of football. You did. And I feel like, and usually when it's the Broncos bye week, I don't tune in a lot anyway, but I feel like I missed some good games today, Kyle.
That Philly Dallas game was a classic.
Yeah.
And it was a good day to get on FanDuel for that game, no matter where you went.
All right. Well, the Broncos are back next week, and I'm pretty sure they're on prime time. I think that's a Monday night game.
I believe so.
Yeah. So if you want to maybe get in on that $150 from FanDuel, maybe that is, and Broncos coming off that big win in Kansas City. They have the off week to really gloat on it. Maybe they're turning things around. Maybe this is where you can start putting money down on the Broncos again.
Let's ride.
Yeah. And over on FanDuel, if you're thinking about joining, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is super easy to use, wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over under, so much more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Kick off the NFL season right. That's FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. All right, before we get to that schedule, I want to give some people over on our subtext. They're due here. They're obviously not very. Why were they? I get it. Nobody's really happy about this one, but Easton says just bad all around. I don't understand why they left Georgiev in net. Let him get the mental restart early. I don't know the last time I've watched 3 shutouts in 4 games. I get growing pains and learning systems. Why is it not at least 1 goal going in the net? That's something that you said. Yeah, it is odd. It is odd to have the last 3 road games all be 4-0 game. Well, this one was 7-0, but to not get a single goal is just right. Even when things are not going well, the Sharks just gave up 10 goals in back-to-back games, and I think in the second one they got 2 goals out of it. So as bad as they are, they got 2 goals. He's right. You would, and not that it makes a difference in the end, but at least that just gives you that mental. We talked about that before. That mental game that goes on, like, okay, we got one in the net. Let's just carry that over into next game.
Yeah, I completely agree. With this roster, you should be easily putting at least 1. Like, shutouts shouldn't be a thing.
And what do you think about Georgiev? Do you think they should have pulled him? I mean, I would. I don't understand why you're not, but
the image, it was on X. I can't remember who tweeted it, but you are a gem for doing it. The Patrick Waugh for the Montreal Canadiens when he was getting spelled. Oh, I was like, it made me have flashbacks. Yes, that was you. Honestly, what are you going to lose? Putting like his save percentage is now just butchered.
Oh God, it's tanked.
Yeah. So what did you gain there, Bednar?
Yeah. Yep. Vargar seems to me that the Avs saw the Knights as their biggest threat. They infused players who would match up better stylistically, like Johansson, Wood, Tatar. Took a flyer on Druin. They don't match up the way the front office thought. It's definitely early in the season, and the team is still learning to mesh. But right now, it was a failure when it comes to matching up against the Knights. The team lacks leadership. When things don't go their way, it snowballs. I agree with that very last section of that sentence. I don't think they lack leadership. And I think that's an easy thing that people want to throw out there. And I get it. They don't lack as good a leadership, but they don't lack leadership. But when things don't go their way, it definitely snowballs. He's 100% true on that. And when he says they don't match up well with Vegas, I disagree with that. And this is where I'll go back to the analytics, which again mean nothing for this game. But you got goals on net. You got opportunities. You were winning battles in this game. It just came down to one team. Everything is going right for them. And when things are going right, we've seen it with the Avs. When everything is just going your way, everything is going your way. And when it's not, it's not. And that's 2 teams just going in opposite directions when it comes to that. So I think the Avs do match up well with them. The numbers show it, but the most important number is on the scoreboard, and that's 7-0. So I know there's a ton of people out there right now saying like those analytics mean squat. For this game, you're right.
The Avs match up well with the Knights when it comes to talent, not when it comes to the team.
Right now. right now. I think this changes. And maybe this is the best thing that happened to the Avs right now. Get blown out of the arena like this. So
Closed door meeting.
yeah.
Closed door meeting.
It's happening. It's happening. All right. The last thing that we want to do is bring up this schedule for the month of November for the Avs, just to take a look, see where things are at, and you have more home games here, and the way that the NHL site, they changed everything this year, so it might be a little bit tough to see on this. Those red bordered ones, those are home games, where last year they were color coded, which was so much easier to read. But anyway, like, so you have this whole week you're home. You're home against the Devils, and you have, 1 day off in between. Devils, Seattle, Buffalo, Blues, sorry. And then, another day off, and then in Seattle. So Seattle twice. You're home against the Ducks. That Dallas game is something that everybody is circling right now, without a doubt. So you have 2 games on the road there. You got Dallas, and then the Nashville Predators, home against Vancouver. That should be a good game. Then your first back-to-back in Minnesota, then at home against Calgary, 1 day off, at home against Tampa, 2 days off, and then you're on the road to end the month in Arizona. So what's that? You got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more home games, and you had the one up there against Buffalo. So you got 7 more home games this month, opposed to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 road games. So what are you thinking?
The Devils game is another measuring stick. I know the Devils are without Jack Hughes, but still, that's a good team. It's the Vegas Light. So it's a good measuring stick game. It's going to be good to see Seattle. That Dallas game, let's see how good you stack up in the Central.
Yep.
And honestly, out of the whole month, circle that Vancouver game. You want to see how you stack up as a team that believes in what they're doing.
Yeah, they're playing
Vancouver believes on what they're doing. Colorado needs to figure it out by then.
You have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more division games here. And then you got your first back-to-back. So you have a good mixture here. Like, Devils are a good team. Seattle's still trying to figure it out. But you have some teams where, you righted the ship for the one game against St. Louis. You're playing them again. Ducks playing better.
Yeah.
Anaheim is playing better. I'm not saying like you should still beat them, but they're a more competitive team.
They beat Boston.
Yeah, they did. I think they won like 4 in a row. I don't know if that still holds true if they played today or yesterday, but anyway, like Nashville, middle of the road team. Wilders seem to be struggling, although very entertaining game against the Rangers the other day that they had, came back and won in a shootout. Tampa still continues to figure out ways to win, even without Vasilevsky. And then Arizona there at the end, who just always seems to have your number if you're the Avalanche. I think it's less about the opponent for this month, because you have a good mixture of them. Division games, road games, tough road games, just tough opponents. And I think it's just more about a more consistent schedule. And I feel like, like this is where the Avs start righting the ship and being more consistent, just being able to find ways to get pucks in the net. And just because you're playing at a more consistent clip, I think this is where I was saying earlier, things just seem to like iron themselves out. And I think that's a big reason why. It's just because you're going to be playing more games. And home is always nice. Being at home is always nice. That doesn't hurt.
And another little, pun intended, feather in the cap for that Ducks team. At time of recording, they are holding the Vegas Golden Knights to a 1-0 lead.
Stop it.
No, Vegas is up 1-0.
Oh, Vegas is up. Okay.
Yeah, but 1-0, 6:32 to go in the second period. So that should tell you where the Avalanche stand and what they're looking at going into next week at home. Don't sleep on the Ducks. I don't think the Avalanche can sleep on any game for the rest of this month in November, because you finish it out with the Avalanche killer and the Arizona Coyotes.
Right. It is. They are an Avalanche killer. Yeah. No, you can't sleep on it just because you want to get this ball rolling.
Yep.
Right. So, but Vegas is coming off a back-to-back. So maybe that benefited Anaheim for tonight, but and Vegas just scored. It just updated, so now it's
Yep.
2-0. So there you go. All right, so yeah, jam-packed show here today. So we got to a lot. Fire away in the comment section. Please sign up for Subtext if you want to have some comments read on the air. We will definitely do that for our Subtext people. So fire away in the comment section. I know there's a lot of emotion going on right now. Completely understandable, but don't extrapolate this out to the full season and say this team is horrible. And right now, in that game, they were. Right now, things are not going the way that they want, and you're going to have games where they're horrible. But if you don't feel like this Avalanche team can right this ship, I kind of feel like maybe you haven't been watching for very long, and I don't mean that as an insult. I just feel like this team is too good for this to continue.
Yeah, it's just frustrating for Avalanche fans. You bought a Porsche and it can't get out of first gear.
There you go. I can always rely on you for the good analogies.
It's the Southern in me.
All right, that's going to wrap it up, everybody. Thank you for tuning in and making this your first listen of the day. That is always appreciated. Can't wait to hear what people have to say in the comment section. So he is Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. I am Chris Maselli. This is the Locked On Avalanche podcast. We'll see you guys tomorrow.